sessions we've had with you. As you remember, we were going through, we went through the first work session, covered the numbers on the results for the alignment. The second survey went out and we did another work session showing stuff, and you want to find out the results so that we can go on and move ahead with the project on the final selection of bridge type. So with that being said, again, we're going to go through very quickly the online open house survey results, high school view impacts, which were noted, alternatives analysis, and then finally an action needed, which is basically give us and we go for it. So awesome. Again, open house, this was basically the alignment came out of the first work session where you said, this is where we'd like it to go through. And so we've applied that. It's option A2. I'm just going to call it the option. Yep. Massing perspectives of what was selected for entryways on either side. This one is at the YMCA. Again, we're wrapping it around the building, provides all the entry area over here, a courtyard type of affair, stuff like that. Stairs on the east side, and then the crossing. You can see the massing and basically what that impacts to the building, existing and potential future building would be as far as visual impact. This is on the west side near the high school. It's basically crossing the water quality facility here. This does not show the type of bridge. We've got another slide in here that goes through that to give you an idea of what you'll be looking at, but you can get an idea of just where the high school main gallery is, where everybody sits around, looks out the windows, what they would be seeing from this area. Now,
from that spot in which nobody would actually ever look that direction.
No, this is basically
you'd be facing the wrong direction on the street.
Okay.
That's correct. This is Kruger Road coming down here, and this is the roundabout. So it's basically Kruger Road, roundabout, and this heads down this way towards Highway 99W. So two different options. Basically, we can discount the girder ones because nobody liked those in the first place. So we had high arches and we had the inverted bowstring. As you can tell by the numbers here, the high arch basically outdid it almost double as far as the ratings go. Overall, if you combine first and second choice together, they were equal, but the preference was for the high arch S shape, the serpentine. So,
if I remember right, that was in terms of material and stuff, that was the most efficient structure, so it's a little cheaper as well.
It is the most efficient, yes. Material structure wise, it's the most efficient use, energy balance, force balance, but it also comes out to be about the least cost, almost equivalent with the girder system.
Awesome.
The bowstring truss would have cost a little bit more. We'll see those numbers shortly, but basically here's one of your decision points is going to be which one of these do you want? We'll get there. 62% chose the tall arch option as their favorite option. 28, the bowstring is their favorite option. It's a big change between the two. Again, both tall arch bowstring chosen at first or second favored option by 80% of the respondents, means that you combine first choice, second choice together, they're both 80% equivalency. So 63% chose the tall arch with twin girders approach option as their least favorite. Sort of figured that. And then participants strongly preferred a steel bridge, 75%, to wood bridge, 13%. And that was part of the survey that we made sure that got out there, that people understood that this material selection is also part of it, not just the type, but also the material selection. And so it's clearly strongly in favor of steel, which is probably the easiest for us to deal with in construction.
Yes. Question on that. So in this, I don't recall,
conservative, like, I can see people choosing steel over wood or wood over steel conceptually based on two things, right? Look, because we had pictures, or there's some understanding of cost and maintenance and stuff. Did we go into any description at all in that survey of those elements, or do you think that preference was totally based on look?
We didn't go into maintenance costs and things like that. We didn't provide that information in the thing. It basically was, which
Based
one would you
on look.
prefer?
I bet some people could come to that, I bet some
Yeah,
people
but
think
we don't,
anyways.
but we
yeah,
didn't
we don't
provide
know.
data
Yeah.
that
We
said.
didn't point at it directly,
Yeah.
but it can be assumed. Wood is going to have maintenance associated. It's long-term, and it's much more so than steel. Steel, nothing gets by without maintenance.
Sure.
Yeah.
Long-term maintenance. However, steel does last longer.
It's
But
just.
I would assume that steel is more expensive. Is that?
Well, here's the deal between steel and wood, strength. When you talk about a steel tube being, let's say, 12-inch in diameter steel tube, and you start putting that under flexure, bending, things like that, the equivalency of a wood structure would probably be 36 or 48-inch thick piece of wood, 2 feet thick. The material abilities of the two are somewhat offset. You could have a bridge made out of steel, lightweight, thinner material, smaller members, and you could have an equivalent capability out of a wood structure, but it's going to be more massive. It has to be because the material isn't as strong.
Right.
So it's a larger member, physically larger.
Okay.
So when you take into account the two structures and the fact that, doesn't look nice, wood always looks nice. It has a nice warm glow to it, but it takes a lot more effort to keep it there, and it has, I would say, a definite lifespan, well beyond steel, or well less than steel. Steel is incredibly long span, which is why it's preferred.
It's just, this is obviously what the community wants, which is awesome, but it's such a 75% is a huge number.
I think most people realize that for the type of structures we're talking about, it would be nice to have magical wood that could be, have the same resistance to the forces applied, but not be so massive, and it would cost less, but that's just not the way it works.
Something may hire.
Okay, we're diverting. Go ahead, next.
Okay. Now this is the one where in lieu of the drone flight, we said, okay, let's try and get a picture of it, because the drone flight is probably going to come about later on when we start talking about the aesthetics of the art and the landscape, how that can be presented. I think that's when we need to do that, which will be in 100% design phase. This gives you an idea of what the bridge structures would look like relative to the high school, what you see from the highway. And I think that this shows pretty clearly that you're not going to have a heck of a lot of stuff in the way. You're going to see the high school, particularly the point that the high school wanted to focus on right there as being, not obscured by this, by this bridge section, or these components. And then we took it one step further and said, however, let's take it a step further and see where the high school had given concern for what they said was their primary concern for blockage of view, which was Mount Hood. So here's the bank of windows on one side, there's Mount Hood, clear up here, and you basically see that this zone is not impacted by it at all. In fact, here's the crossing clear back here and going down here. So these windows out this side, yeah, you're going to look back towards this, but is it going to be that significant? I don't think so.
And when I was on the bond oversight committee, this high school is designed so that if we needed to, we would connect the bottoms of those A's there with another building across there. So if you put that in, especially, you're not, your own school's blocking your view of the Y, right?
Through the bank of windows on this side, yes, but you still retain.
Oh, yeah, you would still have that
retain
view.
Mount Hood.
But what I'm saying is that
Yeah.
if you wanted views from the walkway or any other place,
You're still
I'm
gonna have
with you.
those
I'm saying-
views given the topography anyway.
I think
Yeah,
I think what we're trying to get across is.
We're fine.
It doesn't matter.
We're fine.
Yeah,
We're fine.
yeah, I think we're good.
Totally fine.
Totally fine. The matrix just shows you what we're trying to get at with each one of these elements and the goals listed here, how these things work up, and then the cost is down here. As you can tell, the tall arch and the twin girder are the least cost, and the bowstring is about $1 million more estimate. But the physical characteristics of the two between the tall arch and the girder, just because the girder has to be such a thick member, creates more of a visual impact that we don't want. Everybody agrees with that. So you're basically looking at the least cost system with the biggest wow factor.
Do you mind, going back to the S, I'm a little bit, I was not aware of that part that was underneath the bridge. Does that?
Okay, let me get to it.
That's right. Oh, yeah, you weren't in
This part?
Yeah, where does that hang down? It feels like that would be,
Well, this is part of.
that would hit your car.
No, if you
No,
go.
no, 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 no.
It's wetland, it's not roadway.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, the tall arches
oh,
across the roadway systems,
okay.
but then when you go across the intervening
Okay,
green
okay.
space,
Okay,
It
then
looked different on that other picture, yeah.
we do an inverted arch in there. We could do a span, a girder span in
No.
the second,
No.
but that doesn't lend to the aesthetics that you were looking at.
Oh,
It
yeah.
actually starts to boost the price again.
Yeah.
So you're going from a least cost, most
Yeah.
aesthetically pleasing to something that's not as aesthetically pleasing and a little bit more cost. And that doesn't make sense.
no, that's fine.
And this
So-
is the one that would be the first of its kind, correct?
Yes.
The one.
So you've actually got something, and I've already spoken to KPFF about this, so we're tracking this, and this is probably going to be something that would be the setup for a national award because of its uniqueness,
Nice.
at least through ASC.
Yeah.
Back down to where I was. There. Come on. Slideshow. Red slide. Confirm selection of preferred alternatives for alignment, structure type, structure material, indicate additional information needed or indicate additional information needed by select. You guys raise hand, nod, tell me to go forth.
Everyone like the community support for the high arch?
Yeah.
I love that.
Steve?
I think this is just, I was giddy because it's like, this is the rare scenario where the most striking option is the cheapest option, which is the one that the community overwhelmingly does. Like everything is, it's a no-brainer.
Then we've done our
And
jobs.
it's a good chance we'll get an award.
Yeah, I should give us a discount for that.
You're getting a discount already. Don't worry. So that action is done. We will proceed accordingly. And that means we're going to complete our 30% design and cost estimating by June 20th,
Brilliant.
which is my
That's 2
deadline.
months
And
tomorrow.
before that, I will probably ramp up for 100% contracting to finish the design through them because I'm not going to wait to the very end to get that started. And we've already submitted to ODOT for permitting review, starting to get the concept. So we're getting together all the lists of all the committees we have to go through and departments,
All the red tape.
all the red tape at ODOT. And if we have any pushback there on dates, which we're going to also ask them for review, we will be talking to those people here who indicate they have some influence over this, which I would suspect you will, and we will put you into that scenario and we'll get this thing moving.
Assuming ODOT doesn't become a brick wall, which I don't think it will.
I don't,
Yeah, are we still on track to award a contractor by the end of the year?
by the end of the year, I would,
We'll certainly go to bid by the end of the year.
we'll have the 100% documents ready to go to bid by the end of the year. Whether or not you'll actually get that out the door for bid in December, I'm not sure. That all depends on, again,
People
where we
can't
are
control.
with ODOT. Because going out to bid before they've given us their blessing is risk, and there are different levels of risk KPF and I have discussed that.
And I totally get it, and the only reason I bring it up is, I do that, when you look at inflation, construction costs, and the cost of this project, every month delay is a significant amount of money, the main reason I'm bringing that up now is if we can spend a little more to accelerate it, it might be worth it.
I'm not sure where the acceleration comes from spending more on this one. This really comes from permitting, and then when we set it out for bid, it's going to be a large enough structure that we're in competition. We'll probably get good prices with it, but I think you're actually going to see cost factors come into play with the amount of risk that you push into an early release for a bid versus a later one where everything's done, tied up in a nice pretty bow, the contractor goes, you've answered all the questions. The less risk you will have, a lower value.
100%.
At what point in the process do you come back to us for input on like aesthetic design?
That's going to start up here. Right now, we're going to diverge here into two parallel courses. One is going to be, I'm pushing with the engineers, the structural engineers to start, because they're going to set up the bridge component. But now we start talking about art, landscaping, what do you want to do, how you want to do that. Color lighting, that whole scenario now begins with this decision. We start this parallel path, and that one will be where we get public input on the art and the landscaping, everything else. That's when we bring the two components of the engineering contract and we get everything ramped up and moving at the same time. So I expect that you're going to see that happening very quickly.
Cool.
Thank you.
Questions for Bob?
Nice.
Exciting, super awesome.
Oh, nuts. Took me 5 minutes longer.
That's all our questions.
I said 10 minutes from start to finish.
Is there even a guesstimate as to when it would be, I mean, how does it take a year to build this kind of a thing? Is it?
9 months, I would say. I think part of this is actual field construction. It'll take about 8-9 months to get field construction. Then there's the manufacturing of the components offsite to bring them on. That's going to go in a separate, but it adds into it, but there's overlap.
Yeah.
So I would say anywhere from 9 to 12 months start to stop. You're going to have it within that time period.
Great.
Awesomeness. Great. All right, next on the list is Ty.
I was going to try to use technology for Graham, but I thought it didn't work, so I'm going to pick a method.
Sure, we'll blame the technology,
Yeah. No,
not the operator.
yeah, well, there's probably a lot of operator in that. So this is, are we good to go?
Yeah, good to go.
No, I thought for a second you were losing the video. Sorry.
This is just to follow up on the discussion that we've had, aside from you, that hopefully we can bring you up to speed on a work back program that was introduced, I believe, 3 years ago through the legislation. I think it's House Bill or Senate Bill 1049. Essentially allowed people that had retired out of PERS to come back and work basically at a full-time capacity prior to what it had been, which was a half-time. We elected not to move forward on it back then, but we're in a position now just because of where we're at with hiring and retention within law enforcement that I've spoken with all of you. Sorry. Regarding this and just the importance and the value of this tool for us and where we're at, just because we have so many retirements coming in 2023. We actually have some people that are working back now under the older program, the 1039 program. So I wanted to come tonight and just make sure that we were all in agreement that this would be a tool that would be valuable for where we need to get to over the next few years with the agency and some of the steps we need to take. We did have a policy that was introduced Actually, Josh and Keith and I have talked about it and are working through it, and we'll introduce that to you so that you can see kind of some of the parameters of it. The one thing I want to stress is that 1049 sunsets December 31st of 2024. So this isn't just an indefinite deal. This has an end date in place, and
So I wouldn't support here to have a work back that would go that long
to
internally. So work back, I would be much more in favor of a work back, the 18 or 24 month work back window, and then 6 months before the end of the, say we still need it, we need to go longer than that.
I think we just need to tie it to a date certain, because there's always a chance that the state government will extend the program.
And I think that's where the policy comes in place. The policy would say it ends, it sunsets, and we're in conjunction with that. And so
I wouldn't go with as long as the current state sunset. I would.
You mean as far as letting somebody
It's only
work
2
back
years.
that long?
it's 2.5 years is what we have left on it.
So it's 20 years.
21.
Yeah, they're 2.5 now, so I would be more comfortable with 18 to 24 months from the time of adoption.
And with that work back plan, and again, if you want to cover
Not
this,
just
right?
me, I'm just one voice, and you can extend it to the end of another 6 months or 12 months if needed, but.
And if you want to cover this separate, but when they're working back, is it with the idea that they are training somebody to full-time take over? I mean, is it one of these things where they're doing the job, but we've got their bench being prepared for when they finally retire for good, or?
Yes, the succession planning is a big deal. It's a big
Okay.
part of this thing. The problem is, so for example, we have 3 of our 4 that are retiring next year supervisory positions.
Right.
For us to backfill all that in hiring and getting those people up to speed and then promoting is where we really bottleneck. And this is where this component's extremely important for us, because to your point, yes, they're allowed to train, they fill a gap, all that institutional knowledge doesn't walk out the door, and then we're trying to throw somebody in there with very limited knowledge or skill sets to do the job. So what I don't want to see is our people walking out and going next door and filling in 20 years of law enforcement, and they go work in a neighboring agency that
As of on their work back.
on their work back programs. And then I lost all that. And now I'm trying to fill a gap.
Right, so I guess what I'm saying is that if you're paying somebody, which I assume when they retire, they're making a higher salary than the person who is coming in
To replace
to replace them,
Yes.
right? But we also talked about last week about how some of the people don't want to take that because now they're part of management, and there might, they don't get the overtime, or there's other reasons why they may not want that bump. And I'm wondering can we pair that together and say, okay, when the training is done, there's incentive to get that new guy with the lower salary up to speed in a 6 month to a year time. And then we are not paying 2 people essentially to do the same job. And I know they're not doing the same job, but one's training and one's learning. But if you put a limit on it, then hopefully they'll be able to get up to speed sooner. And then we're able to only pay the junior person and hopefully give them more than we would have for paying the senior and the junior person, right? I'm just trying to say, is there a way to incentivize that junior person to getting up to speed, being like, you know what, I can take over because I've had a year.
I think
of
that assumes
mentorship.
they're only trained, though. I think these are working positions.
I know they're working, but if it's like 50-50 or, you know what I mean? Like, that's part of getting the bench ready, right?
But I don't think this is just about getting the bench ready. This is about, there's a severe shortage of
We're
officers.
keeping
Like-
spots full.
Okay.
All right, it's getting you.
Okay, all right.
No, I totally get what you're saying. There is. And that's part of the problem, is because there's a gap in experience from
Yeah.
a supervisor to a captain per se. I can't just give a captain position to a 3 or 4 year sergeant. I need 2 more years probably.
Okay.
Get them up to speed, get them prepared. And to the point of we're just trying to keep seats or
Bodies.
seats. So a lot of variables, a lot of balls in the air with this, and as you're well aware of, just the hiring and retention is our biggest hurdle right now. So
So I have a question for Josh on this one. So last time we talked about this, would have been citywide and worried about, risk and all that. It can't just be PD, right? Can we just have a policy just for PD?
Sure,
Okay.
we can. I guess that's the question. Is what is the scope that you are interested in? But certainly these are typically limited to not being every employee in an organization.
Right.
It's based on need.
But I know we have some other departments that are also having a hard time filling spots. And so do we need to think about it more citywide or other departments to be included as well? Like.
So that's a question for Keith. If Keith wants to talk about it beyond BD.
I think right now the focus is really on PD, on using the space need we see or talk to other departments to see. Also, what we're talking about here is people with skill sets and training sets that are more challenging and difficult. So for now, this is really the focus on the police. And I've also, I think this is just, as we talk about this program, seeing what kind of success in that we can have really on the sky us going forward, if we wanted to look to expand and have that conversation with council about expanding. Right now, focus is pretty much just the police issue. That is the biggest threat.
I wasn't sure if we could have a policy just for one department, so that's a good to know. Okay.
And I'm not trying to signal that anything here at all. What is the outcome if we do not do this? Is it just we reduce services, help me understand what the.
So you're not committing to, if you adopt a program, you're not committed, it's still up to the city manager to choose.
Yeah.
To use it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not committing to do a work back for a certain number of spots.
Yeah.
Because it's also tied to just the ongoing variables of when new people can be recruited, hired, brought on board, trained. And then, so just from a entry level stuff, and then if they're similarly recruiting, sometimes you have your entry level and you have your laterals, and that the mix of that impacts everything else.
Yeah. It's a ripple effect, one that we don't want to.
Oh yeah, it sounds terrible. That's just what I'm just trying to figure out. Is there any alternative other than improving this? And it sounds like those consequences would be more dire than we're willing to accept as a city, is kind of what I'm hearing from you, right? Or they would be,
I hate to say dire, but they would be very impactful because we'd be losing supervision immediately.
Oh, yeah. No, I know, but maybe, I don't know if dire is the right word, but they would be, certainly less optimal than we would hope from the top notch.
So remind me.
And the opportunity for promoting from within would be more limited because you would be much more heavily trying to get a lateral.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have to. Yeah. To your point, if I lost two, I would lose right away. We wouldn't be able to move because I have nobody to backfill patrol.
Yeah.
So nobody would move. I would just have lost two bodies, three bodies, and
yeah.
And remind me, when we got those three that are gonna retire, I think we still have open spots, or we filled everything now?
within the month, we should be on paper fully staffed.
But I remember Chief Grove telling us, like, feasibly, how many people you could even train in a year. So let's say we had 5 spots even open. We couldn't even train 5 people in a year.
We would make it happen. It would be a challenge, but I mean, where we're at with our partners, we've been talking a lot about regionally helping each other out. 2 that we just hired are in Washington County right now in a pre-academy. So getting some extra time and being creative because everybody's in the same boat. Appreciate the freedom.
To be clear, especially for people that be listening tonight, when you say we're theoretically fully staffed, and we have a couple of new hires, but it's going to be from 6, 9 months to a year before they're actually on their own patrolling. So there's a huge training piece that has to happen, and we have to assume we might lose something during that time period. So we can't sit back on our laurels.
Yeah, well, and certainly losing leadership with the experience and the civic knowledge and all the other stuff is more painful than losing a year rookie, right? So,
And for everybody that's maybe listening, yeah, I illustrated this fully staffed versus fully functional. There's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Our recruits won't see the academy until September. We won't see the whites of their eyes on the streets until March of 23.
And you lose,
And on top of that, I'm gonna be having supervisors walk out the door at that same time.
And when they arrive, then they have our training program.
Yes,
And they're have someone right along with them to get them.
So we got some catching up to do.
So, and I know it's not official, but so they said, hey, they signaled to you that we want to retire. Are you pretty confident that if we okay this policy, that you'd be able to retain them?
Yeah, I've had those conversations. I mean, I need them to stay.
Right, no, I know, I'm just saying, I don't.
Some people want to retire, not.
That bass fishing boat is calling for some of them, right?
Yes.
So Josh, when we looked at this before, and obviously this was before we had all these hiring issues, there was a concern because it was such a new law and Salem didn't give us cover in terms of any pay equity issues, that if we had multiple people in the same position, one person was getting, is it going to create an issue for the union to come back and say, well, now we have to give a raise?
This isn't, we're not having a union conversation. It's not that this is nothing doing with any
I'm
union.
not talking about negotiation, I'm just, does it open?
There was, I remember saying that you.
I think I can answer that.
It's separate from the union stuff.
So
Yeah.
to the mayor's point, we're just talking about non-represented employees this time. If this is ever a conversation about represented employees, that's a different
So
conversation.
this policy would only be for non-represented.
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Is there any risk we need to be?
So the risk is significantly diminished from the last time we talked about this in 2019, for a few different reasons. One, I have not seen any of these concerns about pay equity issues actually materialize into any claims that I've heard of. Then the second being that a major part of the pay equity concern was the 6% employee share that the employer was paying. If the employer is not paying that, then that's no longer a component of the pay equity analysis.
I just want to.
Much lower risk than when we last talked about it.
So I would, unlike you, I would be in favor of allowing this program through the full end of 2024 time period. But I would want our policy to state that date in it, in case it does get extended. I don't want it to just automatically roll over. I want it to have to review it by then.
Keith, what's your concern about to the end?
I haven't seen we were just talking big picture.
Yeah.
The analysis. So big picture wise, I would think we could figure it out in 2 years, but I haven't gotten any analysis from writing from Ty or Keith or Josh to support the longer window.
I'd be supportive for the longevity of the program as well.
I think there's a couple ways you can look at it. You have a date certain, which I think you have done, because we don't want to do Salem extensive, that's all the shit. But I think there's also, you need to think about for the individual, is it a 2-year thing, an 18-month thing? Because you might have people signing up for this a year from now or 2 years from now. So, there's a couple ways you can think about how to get structured.
Is there anything you're needing from us tonight, or is this just all informative, or?
No, I just know that we've had all these individual conversations, and I just wanted to come to the table collectively just to make sure that we were all on the same page, and if there was any direction that were concerns or anything that I needed to go back and clarify and answer. And Councilor Garland, sorry, I keep looking away from you. Did you have anything?
No direct questions, no, Ty. Thanks for the information.
I think we were opposed to this back in 2019, but I think under the current circumstances and the hiring issues that we're having and the law enforcement, COVID changed so much, and our policing has changed so much in the last 2 years that I just think it's probably something we need to do for the short term.
Aside from that, that's all I got. I know, like I said, we've been working through some of the language, so we'll get that to you. I'll get you kind of a timeline so you can kind of see how it plays out.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ty.
Thanks,
We got 25 more minutes if you just want to fill in.
Can we just have one more next
Yeah, there's this section.
Can we just move it to the next section?
So the short answer is we can. One I'm participating in and one I'm not. Brad, are you in the corner? Is 25 minutes enough for yours, or we need more time for yours?
We did 25, you want to right now?
Awesome, so we're gonna pivot into an exec session. This work session is adjourned, thank you, everyone.